Welcome to Dark Diaries, where we tell the scariest true stories. Ouija board and haunted childhood home experience. At the end of May 1987, while my parents were on vacation, I was taking care of the haunted house I had lived in from 1979 till 1985. By this time, the poltergeist activity had decreased to almost nothing, but I was still scared to be in the house alone, especially at night. I called a friend of mine and asked him if he would mind staying there with me when he could, while my parents were gone. I had told him quite a few stories about the activity in that house and barn in the past, so I used the possibility of a paranormal encounter to lure him into staying. He, fortunately for him, had never experienced anything he would consider paranormal before, but was still interested and not skeptical. So he agreed to stay that night. While I was waiting for him to arrive, my brother called to see if I was going to be staying there that night so he could hang out with his friends. I confirmed that I was, and also told him I was having my friend over to possibly have his first paranormal experience. My brother thought that was a good idea, so he decided to mention that to his friends to see if they wanted to join in for an experience of their own. One of his friends had a Ouija board and thought that was a great place to try it out, so they agreed. My brother arrived with his two friends first, and we walked around outside telling his friends about experiences we had there and in the barn. One of his friends was a skeptic, so he wasn't believing anything me and my brother were talking about. The other was like my friend. He hadn't experienced anything in his life, but still had an open mind. While we were talking, my friend finally arrived, so I went to his car to greet him. He had his girlfriend with him, so I asked if he was still planning on staying the night. He said yes, as long as his girlfriend could stay as well. I didn't mind as long as she was aware of my reason for having him stay. I told her that strange things may happen that might be scary to someone who has never had those experiences before. She was also a skeptic, so she agreed to stay, saying nothing was going to happen anyway. While my brother and his friends were still outside, I took my friend and his girlfriend upstairs to show them where they could sleep. After showing them, I started telling stories about the house to prepare them for what could possibly happen during the night. The only thing I was expecting would happen was the attic door would shake and make noise like it had done almost every night while I was living there. We went into the attic so I could show them what was in there while still talking about past experiences in the house and barn. There was a stack of old encyclopedias on the floor that was in disarray with one on the floor. I picked up the one from the floor and placed it on top of the stack and then straightened up the stack while finishing my stories of past experiences. Afterward, I went back downstairs to see what my brother was doing. My friend stayed upstairs with his girlfriend so they could be alone. But when I got downstairs, I saw that they had already set up the Ouija board on the table and even had a few candles on the table around it. The table was in the dining room at the bottom of the stairs. I closed the stairway door and sat down in the empty chair in front of me, facing away from the door. My brother and his two friends were already sitting in the other chairs. We lit the candles, put our fingers on the planchette and began asking questions. The planchette was moving with all our hands on it, answering our questions. I wasn't moving it, but I did think someone in our group was. I didn't believe Ouija boards were anything more than a novelty. While playing with the board, we heard someone walking on the stairs, which caused all four of us to look at the stairway door. I didn't think anything of it since my friend and his girlfriend were still upstairs. I just figured they were coming down. But after a little time, he hadn't opened the door. So I opened the door and saw he wasn't there. I then went up and asked him if he had gone down the stairs, and he told me that him and his girlfriend hadn't moved from the couch they were sitting on. He told me that he thought one of us was coming upstairs because they heard it also. 6 people heard someone walking on the stairs when there was no one on the stairs. My brother's skeptical friend was getting really spooked after that. We had to convince him not to just leave. His other friend was intrigued, like it was the coolest thing he'd experienced up to that point. My brother and I were used to that sort of thing, so it didn't faze us at all. After convincing his friend to stay, we went back to playing with the Ouija board. It was answering questions again, and I still thought somebody was moving the planchette. Then the intrigued friend asked whatever was answering to put out one of the candles. Within 5 seconds, one of the candles just burned out. There was no moving air in the room, plus all the other candles were still burning without any motion indicating moving air. The spooked, skeptical friend screamed and started running for the door, still screaming. The other friend followed him and my brother after that. I shouldn't have been, but I was laughing at the guy's reaction. Even though it was spooky, I never expected a big guy like him to scream like that. I went outside to find my brother's friends getting in the car to leave. I said we can't stop without saying goodbye on the Ouija board, just in case the superstition is true. My brother's friends were not willing to go back in the house though, so my brother and I went in and said the goodbye. They left right after that, without the Ouija board. I went back inside and blew out the remaining candles. Then I went upstairs to tell my friend and his girlfriend what just happened, since I knew they had to have heard the screaming. We sat upstairs talking until nighttime. Nothing happened until after midnight when the attic door began moving. Like I mentioned before, this was a usual occurrence in that house, so I was used to it. My friend's girlfriend was getting really scared by this though. She didn't believe things like this could happen, and here it was happening. It took a bit of convincing to get her to stay, but she did at that point. The attic door was shaking and making noise the whole time. After a bit of time, there was a loud noise that came from inside the attic that sounded like something being dragged across the floor. Then the sound of knocking from within. Once again, we had to talk his girlfriend into not leaving, even while the door rattling and knocking was still going on. After a few minutes, there was a loud thud that sounded like someone had dropped a book flat onto the wooden floor. That was it for his girlfriend. There was no talking her into staying now. She ran downstairs with us right behind her. She told my friend she would be back to pick him up in the morning, and she left. We went back inside and slept downstairs. When we got up, I just had to look in the attic to see where that loud noise came from. When I looked in, the first thing I noticed was the stack of encyclopedias was no longer straightened up, and the one I picked up was right back on the floor. I can't say for sure if any of this was brought on by the Ouija board, but that was more occurrences in one day, witnessed by more people than there had ever been in that house before. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave your own story in the comments.